So, thanks very much to Maggie for joining us this evening. Thank you very much, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here this evening, and I assure you I will not be rapping. So that comes as a great relief to most of you. I'm very excited about the opportunities and the possibilities that this constitutional debate that we're in, that we are all here to be part of this evening, that it's clearly something that there is a lot of enthusiasm for, a lot of interest in, and it's something that we need to capture that interest. And Laura, Ross, and Pat, thanks very much for setting up this evening. I think it's really important that we get this going indeed. For me, the constitutional debate, the campaign, is about hope. It's about a positive vision for Scotland's future, for making our country and our world a better place. We have the chance to change the culture of politics in Scotland through this movement, which is so important to me. And I want to set out here why I care about Scotland's constitutional future and why I find the argument for independence, for a radical Republican Scotland, so compelling. There are a lot of good reasons for Scotland to be independent, but for me, nationalism is not one of them. I'm not a nationalist, I'm an internationalist. What matters to me are the political structures that engage the people they claim to serve, that enable participation of citizens, economic principles that are not stacked against the majority, and community organising that has a voice, that is heard. The British state, as it is broken. The UK is certainly not okay. It has been completely and totally captured by corporate and imperial interests. And I think, we can look over the last 40 years and think, well, what has the British state actually done for us? Answers on a postage stamp thing. The last adequate British government, in my very humble Southern African opinion, left government 40 years ago. That was the last government, the last Wilson government, which invested in British technology. It abolished the death penalty, it legalised abortion, it decriminalised homosexuality. It was economically competent and socially progressive. Since then, we've had government after government that have pursued pretty aggressive, pretty right-wing policies. And that's the future that we see being presented to us by the large Westminster parties at the moment. More privatisation, more benefit cuts, more wealth to the wealthy. And we don't have an alternative. In Westminster, I don't see any other party other than Labour or the Conservatives winning enough to be the dominant partner in any coalition. And in Scotland, in some ways, we don't see those parties offering Scotland anything else. Johanna Mott has not said that what Miliband said about carrying on with Tory cuts was an outrage. She's not gone down that line. So, to me, as I look at Scotland, the Scottish people have largely rejected what those parties stand for. Partly because, and I think that they are to be commended by this, because the SNP has articulated a vision that offers something else. And as a Green, it might pain me to say that at some time. But I think it's important to acknowledge that vision of hope. We wouldn't be having this debate if it weren't for the SNP in government. But the debate around independence is not just about electoral politics. Our political structures are, largely speaking, broken. They don't serve to represent the people that they claim to represent. And being part of that process, part of that system, I realise that that's maybe a little bit ironic for me to say that. But I think that this independence campaign gives us something different. We are here because we want profound social change. And that social change comes from social movements, from the grassroots movements that Laura identified right at the beginning. And we want to be part of that. I think we have to all be a part of creating a different Scotland. A Scotland that is more egalitarian, a Scotland that has the political structures that serve its own interests. We need to ensure that our ideas for radical workers in the Parliament are enshrined, that social security is something that people don't just drop at any sort of given suggestion. We need to work for participation in our political processes. So with a yes vote next September, we can build the kind of radical, progressive Scotland that I certainly want to carry on living in. A Scotland that controls its own social security system, supporting the most vulnerable. Why is it that we have over 14,000 households reliant on food banks in a first world country? Really? It's an outrage. We need to build a Scotland that sustains its own economy, that controls its own economy. An economy based on the wealth of resources, energy resources, human resources that we have. Based on wealth for all, not corporate capitalism and wealth for the few. And we should be giving communities the power to control their own resources, whether those resources are energy or whatever they are. Communities need to be able to control and own them. I want to see a Scotland that distributes money from the rich to the many. We can build that kind of Scotland by investing properly in people, and a lot of that goes in investing in education, investing in empowering, emancipating, free education. It's clearly a common good and something that has to be paid out of common funds. We also need to grab the opportunity to democratise the institutions. Things like the BBC. I think the BBC is great, but it's clearly pro-austerity. Not the views of a few people who live somewhere in the southeast of England. So we can challenge the centralisation of the state, giving communities a say over their futures. We can make the argument for a fair tax system that isn't designed to encourage tax evasion. We can take our land and redistribute it to meet the needs of our people, rather than the needs of a few elite. We can create a new, vibrant, democratic and equal Scotland. And something that's very important, I guess, to many of us here, we can have a Scotland that does not turn its back on people in other parts of the world, but a Scotland that turns its back on war. A Scotland that plays its part, a very important part, on the international stage in the struggle for peace. So we have a political project here, a social movement that we need to build to drive the change we want. And central to that has to be recapturing control of our economy. Claims from the unionist parties that the British economy is the only way Scotland can survive is just complete garbage, quite frankly. The British economy is not British, it's global. It's something that we know the British state actually has very little interest in seeking to take control of. We know the British state is in the hands of corporate interests. And we need to use this debate over the next 15, 16 months to ensure Scotland does not end up in the same place. So our opportunities here are opportunities for change, for a different Scotland, a progressive Scotland. And I hope that the independence debate gives us that movement, that social, progressive movement that creates the Scotland I want to